I don't know why that makes it magic, but something magical has happened because this thing was dying. Lou, over here. This thing was dead, guys. This thing was dead. And it came back from the grave. Look at that. It's amazing to me. It's the pot. Well, there comes a little time in all of our lives when we just need a little extra help. And the same could be said for my little buddy Lou Monty here and my other buddy Carlos. All right, we're going to talk about those two guys in just a minute, but first I need to set the stage here. So I have been struggling with a certain issue that I've read a lot of you are struggling with as well when I get on Facebook and I get in these fig groups. And it is when we propagate figs. So you guys thought this wasn't the real mic because you didn't hear the rooster crowing, but here we are at 9 in the morning and the rooster's crowing. Anyway, you start propagating cuttings of figs and they start growing those beautiful roots and they're white and they're healthy and fill the cups, and then they start turning brown and they start rotting and eventually the cutting rots and it dies. And I have had the same results as you guys. I mean, you know, obviously I've got a lot of them taken and growing on into big, beautiful plants, but over the last few years, I've been trying to find out why is this happening and what can I do to stop that rot in its tracks and actually grow these figs into healthy, beautiful figs and not worry about this. Well, I've got a little story about this, little backstory, and maybe I'm hoping that what I've discovered here will help you guys. It seems to be helping me with 100% success rate. All right, so first let's talk about Lou here. So this fig was sent to me by Lou Monty. You guys have seen his channel, I'm sure. Great channel. You should go check it out. I'm going to put a link down in the description if you want to go check his channel out. But it was a Desert King fig. I was exceptionally excited to have this fig because if you'll go watch his channel, he's got several videos about this particular Desert King and how it's just an exceptional version of the Desert King. And so I wanted to plant it here at my place because I'm in the Pacific Northwest and Desert King, I mean, just hands down is the best performing fig for our area. I happen to personally think that it is just one of the best tasting figs. Does it rival like the BNR and the Black Madeira? Yeah, for my area, because I can actually get the figs to ripen. The taste of the Black Madeira is going to be better, obviously, if you like berry figs, and it's going to be just more intense. But these Desert Kings are just absolutely amazing. I was super happy to get this one here. Now, a couple of years ago, yeah, you heard that right. This fig is several years old. So a couple years ago, I rooted this fig. I think it was 2 winters ago. And it last summer grew through the summer in a 2-gallon pot. That's what I up potted it to. And I got some nice growth off of it and it did fairly well. However, as I got into the fall and the leaves started turning yellow and falling off, and then I got into the winter, it didn't look so good. I worried that it wasn't going to bounce back this spring. This spring came along. I had it in my garage early. I anticipated fully that this thing would just take off after a nice long winter, and that didn't happen. This little branch here started shooting off, and it grew up, actually you can see right here, it grew up this far, had a nice little bud on the end, then it stopped growing. And I was a little bit nervous because I was planning on planting this one fig. It's the only one I've got from Lou. I was planning on planting this in my orchard, on the inside of my orchard, next to my raspberries and blueberries and strawberries, in just its own little perfect spot, just front and center, because it's the best performing fig in my area. Well, I was getting a little bit scared because I was going to lose this thing. It was starting to rot, and I'll show you that in just a sec. I'll bring you over closer, but it was starting to rot and die back. And as that was happening, I thought, why are we going through this again? Now here I've got this beautiful fig. It's in a 2-gallon pot. It's been growing for a year and a half, 2 years, but it's just not really growing. And I kind of looked at the roots on the bottom. They were starting to look brown. things just were not looking good, and I thought, this thing's dead. It's toast. It actually got to a point where I thought, there's no going back. This thing is toast. It's gone. Unfortunately, I've lost Lou's fig. However, you can see it growing beautifully. So I want to show you what this looks like up close now. Here was, you can see it's my Desert King from Lou M. Here is the new growth that came out this past spring. And it came all the way up, had a nice little bud, and then just stopped. That was it. And it started turning this brown color and died back to here. And then it started turning brown, and there was some brown in here, and it just looked like it was dead. This thing was not going to recover. And then after I did what I did, and I'm going to reveal this beautiful secret to you guys in a few. We got to talk about Carlos first. But this new bud suddenly started to emerge. It started to swell. I thought this thing was dead, and the bud started to swell almost immediately within a week of doing what I did. And now after a few weeks, this guy has just started taking off, and it looks healthier than ever. Now, unfortunately, we're in late August, and so it's not going to do too much more. I mean, it'll grow more. We've got longer summers. I mean, it'll grow into September. But next year, I fully expect this thing to take off. Let's go look at Carlos. Now, here's my buddy Carlos. Same exact issue. And you guys may remember this one. I did a little fig propagation project over the winter, this past winter. And in the spring, I posted the video. This was one of those fig cuttings in that video. Well, probably, what was it? Last fall, a year ago, Carlos over in Jersey sent me 2 beautiful cuttings. I think it was 2 cuttings. Might have been 3. I think it was 2. It was 2. It sent me 2 beautiful, thick, healthy cuttings of Col de Dame Noir, a fig that I've really wanted for a long time. The Noir is supposed to be the best tasting of the Col de Dames. I've never had one and just always wanted one. And we were chatting, and he said, you know what? I'm going to send you some cuttings. This is the one from Montserrat Ponds, and he said, this is the true Col de Dame Noir. You got to have this one. Okay, he sent me the cuttings. I kept them in the fridge for a short period of time till I was ready, and then I got them stuck. You can go back and watch that video. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description down there. But I rooted these things, both of them rooted. Both of these things rooted. And I was excited to no end. I thought, double the chance of getting this thing going. And we went on into the spring. I up-potted it into, I think, a 2-gallon pot. Yeah, I up-potted it into a 2-gallon pot, both of them. And all of a sudden, one of them started dying back and not looking good. In fact, I think it was the thicker cutting. The roots started turning brown, and it started dying back and rotting. And then I watched the top slowly start to turn brown and wilt and die, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what I was doing wrong. It depressed me to no end. And this one continued to grow. You can see it got 2 beautiful leaves. We'll look at it in a second. And by the way, we're going to go into this in a minute, but I went through a whole process that's been going on all summer with this one to get it to this point. And I'm going to explain what I did, and I'm hoping this helps you guys because it's helping me. But once this thing started showing, this one started showing the same problem eventually. It started to turn brown. The leaves started to wilt. A few leaves fell off. And I thought, oh no, now I'm losing both of them. And I was going to have to tuck my tail between my legs, go back to Carlos and cry to him about how I no longer have this Col de Dame Noir, which, you know, is kind of crazy because I'm supposed to be the plant guy. But yeah, I'm just like a lot of you, I struggle sometimes with these young, newly rooted figs. You wouldn't think you would struggle because we're going into a warm summer. They should just be taken off with growth, and yet some of them rot and die. Well, let's talk about what I did and what I found, I believe, is the problem. All right, so before we sit down and talk about this, I want to show you just how good this is looking right now. So there's my little tag. That's old Carlos right there. And then we've got this beautiful cutting he sent me. They were good, probably 9-inch cuttings, thick, healthy looking, beautiful cuttings. And anyway, I thought these things were gone. This is not gone. This is a beautiful fig, and it's gonna, I am convinced, gonna grow into a big, beautiful tree, and is already on its way to doing that. Look at those buds opening. That is just a sight for sore eyes, and I couldn't be happier with Carlos here. Now, if you guys just want to know the big secret, I'm going to tell you right now and get you off my back. Yes, I up-potted them. But there was a whole process here that happened before I discovered that that's what was going to help them. And if you want to hear the rest of it, that's what we're going to talk about now. So, with Lou's fig, it stayed in that 2-gallon pot for all the time. I mean, I'm surprised it made it through that first winter, because it was not looking good last summer, at the end of summer and into the fall. I'm surprised it actually made it through, but it's a hardier variety around my area, and maybe it's just that thing's just tough and made to live. So I'm very happy it did. We got into the spring, it wasn't growing. I was getting depressed. The roots are turning brown. Things are starting to rot, like so many of you have seen before in your cups or in your propagation systems. And you're going, why do I get these things to root? And they finally just die. And I never get them any further. Well, the same thing was happening to Carlos fig. And I actually did more with that one. I was kind of trying to split them up and try 2 different things. So let's go into that now. Let's talk about what I did and how I arrived at where we're at now. So earlier on in the spring, when I first started noticing Carlos fig rotting, I got really nervous and thought, I'm overwatering. So I stopped watering it almost completely, and I was letting that soil dry out. Now, the reason I thought I might be overwatering was because I had actually this year, for the first time, I didn't just use my finely ground fir tree bark as potting soil. I mixed it in with a pre-prepared potting soil that I get. I really like it, but I did like a 50-50 mix. And that potting soil holds more moisture. And so I haven't had to water as much in the figs. Just another thing to add, the 7-gallon and bigger pots that I've got with bigger trees, I can water them all the time and they don't want to rot. They don't want to die. I don't have any problem from them. For some reason, the 1-gallon and 2-gallon, the smaller pots, they were rotting and dying. So I thought, okay, I'm overwatering these things. I'm just going to stop watering them. So I stopped watering them. And I watched that soil dry out over weeks as it was getting hotter and hotter. But nothing was changing with the fig. So I thought, okay, I've let it dry out long enough. The soil seems fairly dry. And they're not looking any better. They just kind of were in a state of suspended animation. So I thought, maybe they just need more water. Maybe I wasn't watering them enough. So then I watered them both really heavily. Then it got really ugly. They started declining even faster. And I thought, oh boy, that was the problem. Too much water. Well, you know, and so once again, here we are thinking these figs are so finicky. I don't think they're as finicky as we think. I think they're missing one thing. So, or we're missing one thing. So anyway, I ended up taking Lou, the Desert King, and I thought maybe it's something to do with this shade house. Maybe it's the plastic, the white plastic. It blocks 50% of the sun. Maybe it's blocking too much UV. Maybe it needs more natural light. So I set it right on the edge because I wanted to slowly acclimate it. I set it right on the edge of my hoop house, and you know, so it would get like the shade after about noon and get a little bit more natural sunlight in the morning. I did that and quit watering it, and still I was watching it slowly decline. And that was the point where I started thinking, and that I watched it slowly decline over a good month and a half, thinking it was going to bounce back as it dried out, and it didn't. It was getting to the point where I really thought it was dead. But anyway, at the same time I moved that into more light. This was early on in the summer. I took Carlos's fig, that Col de Dame Noir, and I said, I gotta make this thing live. So I completely took it out of this hoop house. I thought maybe it's still getting too cold at night. Just to add that, we have cooler nights here, cooler days than like over on the East Coast. And it was still getting down into the 50s at night, every night. And I thought, maybe it's just too cool. Maybe that's the problem. It needs more consistent temperatures. So I moved it into my little growing room with my fluorescent lights and all that. And I put it in under my houseplant light. So I had fluorescent tubes. It was in a room that stays around 75 to 80 degrees. And then I had those fluorescent lights on it. And the pot stayed warm. I quit watering it. I didn't water this thing for, I think, a little tiny bit just to make sure the soil had some moisture. That went on for like a month. It pretty much dried out. But the pot stayed like 75, 80 degrees. And all of a sudden the plant stopped looking like it was going to rot. It stayed in a state of suspended animation again. Half rotted, half not. And the buds started to turn a little bit green. But then after a while, I thought, well, it's drying out too much. I'll water it some more. And then all of a sudden, it started looking like it was going to die again. And I thought, geez almighty, these things are... So anyway, get through all this, and I've got 2 figs. One inside my growing room, one at the edge of this hoop house. They've been sitting in this state for a good month, month and a half through the summer. I'm missing the best months for growing and getting all this new growth and getting these things healthy. And I finally got to about the middle of August. Actually, it was probably, it was after the first week of August. It was like August 10th or something. And I said, I've killed them both. I thought they were done. I knew the Desert King was dead. I knew it was dead. That's how miraculous this is. I absolutely knew this thing was dead. And the Col de Dame Noir I thought was on its way out. I didn't think I could save it. But I thought as a last ditch effort, this is not working inside this warm room. These figs over here are growing beautifully out in the hoop house. I'm doing something wrong. So I thought maybe they just need to get up potted. So I immediately brought them both together. I up potted them both in 7-gallon pots. I didn't mix my potting soil with the fir bark. I used fir bark, the finely ground fir bark, without the potting soil, so they wouldn't hold as much moisture. However, this pile of fir bark I used was like 3 years old and somewhat rotted, so it does have some potting soil-like characteristics, if that helps. It will hold moisture. I up potted them both from 2-gallon into 7-gallon pots. And then I fertilized both and watered them heavily because I wanted to just saturate the pots so I could just leave them alone for a while. At that point, I thought they were both goners. So I thought, what can I lose? I saturated them both in 7-gallon pots, done. Well, within a week, not even a week, both plants, the Desert King started first. All of a sudden, a little green bud in a spot that I didn't think there was a bud, that it was rotten, started turning real bright green. And I thought, wow, well, that's something. And then shortly after, a few days later, the Col de Dame, the top buds started turning just a nice lime green again. The plant had some vibrance to it, you know, just turning green. I thought, wow, well, maybe I'm onto something here. Long story short, within a couple weeks now, actually today is August 26th, I think. I think it is August 26th today. It might be the 27th. But anyway, within several weeks, I've got the growth that you saw on both of them. The Desert King has taken off faster, and it's got that much new growth on that thing and looking healthier than ever. I have not done a deep watering on either of them through that time, but I have gone over both of them with the watering wand several times a week just to moisten the top layers of soil, but there's still plenty of moisture down underneath at the bottom of the pot. They haven't dried out. I haven't been letting them just dry out. Then Carlos over here, Col de Dame Noir, is really just starting to put on some nice green buds that, as you can see, are opening into leaves, and I think it's just ready to start taking off. Now, unfortunately, we're in August now, end of August, and the season is going to be shutting down soon. But because I fertilized them both well, I gave them new room to stretch out the roots, I think we're going to see more growth because we tend to have hotter, longer Septembers. Actually, we don't typically start getting a turn in weather and real cold weather until midway through October. So I think we'll have time to get some good growth on these guys. And then they're both going inside my garage. I'll let them go dormant out here first into November, and then I'll put them in my garage to protect them. But what I think is going on here is a couple things. And we're gonna talk about where there could be some issues. Let's go look at them again. So here is our Carlos fig, and both of them were treated the same basically, except for the time this was in that little plant room and that guy was down sitting on the edge of the hoop house there. But here's a 2-gallon pot right here, and it's not looking so good. I mean, it's looking okay, but it's losing its leaves. I honestly don't think that these figs like being constrained in smaller pots. Can they be constrained in smaller pots? Yeah, some varieties do better than others. There's a Maroc 23. It's not really growing because it's constrained. You know, but these guys are all in 7-gallon pots, and look at how healthy they look. They love it. Yeah, they're not growing as fast, but you know, they're growing. That's all new growth. If I had them in the ground, they'd grow a lot faster. But their roots are down at the bottom. All of these pots. I've had some of these in the pots a couple of years, but they're not too constrained. I think the problem is, I think what's going on here is these figs are meant to be large trees, and they've got aggressive root systems. And what I'm finding is they just need bigger pots. Now, here's the interesting thing. I've got roots down in the bottom of these 7-gallon pots. In fact, I've had this one right here. This is I got some air layers going on too. This is my Ben's Golden Riverside. I know it goes by several names. This one was sold to me, not sold, actually we traded some plants, but this was given to me by Ben B directly, and he had grafted it on. It's a grafted. I'm trying to get an air layer so I don't have the graft, because I like not having grafted figs here. But I think that he thought this was a Gillette rootstock. But anyway, not 100% certain on that. But I've had this one in this pot for a very long time, and its roots are all the way down to the bottom. Now I can put this plant, and I've done it before, in one of these, kind of like I've got this hydrangea in, and the roots just sit underwater in the very bottom, and the plant does okay. It's not in that situation now, but I've had it in that situation. It just doesn't need it right now. And the roots do okay, the plant does okay, it grows healthy, but it's in a 7-gallon pot. Now, this one here was in a 2-gallon pot like this. The roots were sitting in the bottom. I didn't have it in one of those trays. It just had too much moisture, or the pots are holding on to too much moisture, maybe. I don't know. The plants aren't big enough to overcome all that extra moisture. And it's odd to me. The only variable that's different is this is a bigger pot, and all of a sudden this little guy is thriving. I just think they're meant to be large trees, and those roots need place to stretch out. And once they get that place to stretch out, whether you've got them in tons of moisture or not, they like the bigger pots better. Now, I think from now on, honestly, I'm going to start taking my rooted cuttings and immediately going to 7-gallon pots. I will say, too, I will add this for anybody interested. When I was just starting out in figs, I think I started with figs in like 2016. That's what I did. When I rooted figs in the beginning, I didn't have as many varieties, and I don't have a ton of varieties, but I think I started with like 10 varieties. I wanted them to grow big fast. So, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I was doing. I rooted some figs in the Dixie cups, and I immediately up potted them, little Dixie cups, into big 7-gallon pots. In that first few years of figs, they grew beautiful and huge and awesome. I didn't lose a single fig to that little rotted root syndrome that so many of us see in our young rooted cuttings. And now all of a sudden I'm having trouble because I'm rooting figs and then I'm up potting them just to 1 gallon or 2 gallon. So I think that's the one issue. Up pot them to bigger pots. Take your newly rooted cuttings. As soon as you start seeing them white roots fill in that cup, boom, put it in a 7-gallon pot. Put it in a big pot. I don't know why that makes it magic, but something magical has happened because this thing was dying. Lou, over here. This thing was dead, guys. This thing was dead. And it came back from the grave. Look at that. It's amazing to me. It's the pot. You need more room. You need room for these things to stretch out and grow. That's the secret. Now, for those of you who've stuck around, I'm going to tell you one more thing I've been doing. And you might think I'm absolutely nuts, but I don't care. Probably half of you think I'm nuts anyway. There are a lot of people out there that believe in the power of vibration and creating positive vibrations, and we can create negative vibrations. And there have been tests. There have actually been test studies that have proven that vibrations can have an effect on plants. They've done studies with water when it comes to these vibrations. They've done studies with plants. And what I'm talking about is you can take a plant and you can tell it how horrible it is, play heavy metal music, yell at it, treat it bad, and it will die. The same plant, a genetic clone, if you tell it how much you love it, it will thrive and do great. Play classical music. They've done studies on this stuff. Get on YouTube. Well, you're already on YouTube. Just start digging around. You'll find something. It's really interesting. I came out here every day, multiple times a day. And I just kind of caressed Carlos here. And I told Carlos how much I loved him. And that I knew he was going to grow into a strong, beautiful tree someday. And that he was in the most comfortable, happiest place he could be. And then it was time to shine and really do what he needed to do. And I just told this little guy that I loved him every day. I did the same with Lou's fig. I don't know. I'm just telling you guys. These things were on the brink of death. And they've come back. Take it for what it is. You can throw that little tidbit out, or you can keep it, put it in your back pocket. I don't know. Go find some videos about it. It's really interesting stuff. But Carlos and Lou are doing great. So there it is. 2 beautiful, happy, healthy figs. And I think they're just going to grow on. I know they're going to grow on into beautiful, happy, healthy trees. And I am glad I finally figured this out and discovered this. I think it will help some of you. I know I've struggled with this when they first root and those roots start rotting and dying. This has got to be the answer. I mean, you can see the results. They're starting to grow well. They're doing well. I think this might help a lot of you out there. Some of you probably already know this, but I've discovered this for myself now, and I just wanted to share it. All right, so it's been a week since I filmed that last portion, and I've already got a ton of new growth on this thing. So I just want to show this to you before I get this video up to verify that this is actually working, and I have saved these figs. So here's our little buddy Lou. This is the Desert King, and it's doing well. It's got a little growth on it, but it's coming up still. Big leaves. It's looking healthy. Really nice. I'm not overwatering. I'm going over the top, but you can see it's got moisture about 2 inches down, and then it gets, damp in there. But I'm not overwatering it, but it's in a bigger pot. Those roots are able to just stretch out and really get a much nicer growth to them, to where they're not feeling like they're cramped up in the bottom of a pot and getting just kind of, sitting in water in the bottom of that pot. And then here is Carlos. This is the Col de Dame Noir. And all those leaves that you saw, the little buds that were there before, they've just opened up, and this thing is just starting to take off. You can see the new growth in there. It's doing real well. Nice new growth. I mean, I was really worried about this thing. I thought it was dying back there and up in these areas, and it's just beautiful and bright and green. Big leaves now. I'm no longer worried about this. Let's do a little soil check for you. So we're about 2 inches down. We're starting to get some moisture. I haven't been overwatering it, just kind of brushing over the top. But once again, it's in a 7-gallon pot, and it's able to it could just stretch those roots out and start growing again. So there it is. It's been a week since I filmed that last part, and I had to show you guys this so you can see that they are, in fact, still doing healthy. Those buds are continuing to grow, even though it's been a little bit more time. I think it's just going to be smooth sailing from here. I am going to let these go dormant this winter. We're in September now, beginning of September. I'm going to let them go dormant this winter, and then it'll start freezing here sometime in November. I'll probably let them go through a freeze or two out here in the hoop house where it's semi-protected from this plastic here. But both ends are open on this thing, so it freezes hard as a rock in here. But I'll let them go through a freeze or two to go dormant. And then I am going to be moving those into the garage again, where it's typically 50 to 55 degrees through the winter. It's pretty stable. I don't want to take any chances of losing those guys. I'm going to be moving a lot of my figs in there. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. I think we finally arrived at the end of this video. All right, it's been a week and a half. Just one more view. You got to see this. It's just beautiful. These leaves are getting so big. Carlos is just growing like crazy. Loving this bigger pot, stretching out fully. All right, that's it. I'll end it here.